Today I'll show you how to replace the rear disc brakes on a Super Duty Ford. This is a 2001. First thing you want to do is get a piece of baling wire around the springs. We're going to have this wire here so we can hang the caliper on as we take it off. There are two 9/16 bolts. We're going to remove those. This job is so easy. It shouldn't take you more than 5-10 minutes to do it. With the two bolts removed, simply going to pry the caliper loose. Once the caliper is removed, you can just simply pry these pads out. Put the new one in. Both are same left and right, so you can't mix them up. I don't typically replace the calipers, the whole assembly, on the rear brakes. I do on the front, because the fronts are the primary brakes. That's where you do 70% of your stopping power. The rear is not so much, so I'll usually just replace the pads on those. Now before you reinstall the caliper, you'll have to compress these pistons. You can do this with it hooked to the brake line. I just took this off so I could demonstrate it to you a little bit easier there. Take one of your old pads and a C-clamp. If you don't have a C-clamp, you can use a couple screwdrivers, prying against each other, or pry bars. C-clamp works best. And screw that in and compress those pistons. You see, if you don't compress those pistons, you won't be able to get the caliper back on, because as the brake pads wear, those pistons push out further and further. And so we've gotten rid of the skinny brake pads and we put the fat ones on, so we've got to compress that back to where it was new. Now if you're leaving your the caliper on connected to the brake line, before you compress these, be sure you remove the cap of the master cylinder, because that will allow you to kind of relieve the pressure on the system, and you can push it back in. Alright, so with that compressed all the way, we'll reconnect the line and reinstall the caliper. Alright, we'll slide our caliper carefully back into position. Start both of our bolts. Those are 9/16 thread, if I didn't mention it already. And tighten the two bolts up. Now if you did disconnect the line, we can reconnect the line, and then we'll just bleed the system like we would any other brake system. You'll need a buddy to do that. To bleed the brakes, you'll need someone else to be in the driver's compartment pushing down when you tell. Make sure that you do it in this sequence. They push the pedal down and hold it. Push the pedal down, and you crack this and close it before they let up. If they let up while it's open, it'll suck air into the system. We don't want any air in the system. Down.
I'm down now.
Okay, up. Down. Up. Down. Keep doing this until you no longer see air bubbles in the system. Up. Down. So as we're bleeding our brakes, we're going to keep an eye on our master cylinder. We don't want it to go dry. If we get the level too low, it'll suck air, and then we'll have to re-bleed the entire system. So just keep an eye on that and keep it topped off. So here's a trick that'll really save your back when you're putting these heavy wheels and tires back on the lugs. Put your knee down and roll the tire up on your knee, like this. And then you can use your leg and your calf to simply lift that up and down and put it into place where it needs to go, without trying to lift up and just destroying your back. So that's it. Piece of cake. Nothing to be afraid of. That's a job that any of us could do, and you can save yourself a lot of money. Be kind of careful with auto parts. Many people don't know it, but there are many different qualities of auto parts. Just because you get something new doesn't mean that it's as good as it can be. Usually the top of the food chain is OEM. That's original equipment manufacturer. Those are the parts you're going to find at the Toyota dealership, at the Ford dealership. Some of the really discount automotive stores are going to carry grades that are 4 and maybe even 5 tiers below that. Usually at a Napa is a pretty good choice. They usually have medium to upper grade parts. You'll have to just check. So just be aware of that, especially when you're buying brake and suspension components, because you don't want to go to all the trouble of putting ball joints in just to replace them in 1 year. So buy quality and it will save you money in the long run. You know, it's just checking batteries, for example, calling around to Napa and local department store or different stores for batteries for my truck, and I was getting prices of $150 or so. It was pretty average. I called Walmart just for the fun of it, and of course they were half, $79. So why is that? So I got to checking around and found out what the reason for that, and it was the cold cranking amps on the Walmart battery were almost, or 60% of what the cold cranking amps you get at Napa. So just because it's cheaper doesn't mean that it's the same thing. So just be careful and just be aware of that with auto parts, because there's a broad range of quality. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video. I'm often asked by folks where I learned to work on cars, or where I learned these mechanical skills. My grandfather was a mechanic for Ford. He was in the Second World War, and when he got out of the war in 1945, he went to work for Ford and worked only 2 different places his whole career. And they were both for Ford garages. So he used to do work on the weekends at his small shop, his little garage, and we would do transmissions and brakes and engine rebuilds for people and word of mouth. And I just grew up with the tools in my hand, and grew up in that shop, in that garage, and learned a lot from him, as well as my father, who always, you know, did his own repairs on things. So that's kind of where I picked it up. So thanks for watching, and thumbs up if you like these videos. Again, this is the type of thing that I would call like a real life vlogging series of me just bringing you along when doing the things that I do. And if you enjoy that and appreciate the time that goes into that, you can show me by clicking the thumbs up and show support for the channel, and I really appreciate that. So over here to the left or to your right, whatever, rather, if you click on that video, I've got a short and concise video on how to do the same brake job but for the front, for the F250 Super Duty series. So if you need front brakes as well, that will cover that. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next video.